Everyone. I'm really excited to have the Rose lineage Shona join us. So I hope everyone is well. Talking about today the beautiful sacred work that Shona does. Also a bit about the Wimway. Hi, how are you,
Hi.
beautiful?
Yay.
Oh,
Okay, cool.
finally.
Yeah, doing it. It's happening.
It's happening. Oh, how have you been?
So good. Yeah, we just actually had a group team call for our next training. So just the ground floor. So preparing for the magic right now. It's about to come.
Oh, yeah. So tell us a little bit about the magic, the way of the rose, your journey, because I just felt like, all the way back, when you see the soul sister and you see her on this journey, and I feel like you and I were all like all these different places around the world, and you're just like, wow, I love that work, and I've learned so much, from following you and the things that you share about the sacred work that you do. So yeah, let's get started.
Well, first of all, thank you. Thank you for having me in this space. Thank you for sharing me with your network, with your community. I like deep bows to you and what you're doing. It's always such a big journey. I feel like I haven't been back to Australia for like 10 years. And whenever I've noticed that more and more I've been sinking in with like my roots. I think that the times that we're in right now, I think all of us can agree that it's all about going back to the roots. So my name is Shona Keeli Rose, and I am from Australia. And this work that I'm carrying forth is from my lineage, it's from my bloodline. So my grandmother, she's like 86 years old. She still has a rose garden, like wins Rose Garden of the Year. She's like a really powerful part of my journey. I grew up in a massive, beautiful rose garden. She always had big rose gardens. And it wasn't really until I came to America, until I came to Hawaii, where I live right now. I live in Hawaii, where I really realized, oh wow, like this is my lineage. This is the work I'm supposed to be doing, is carrying forth these teachings. So Lemuria, as we know, maybe some of us don't know, is actually it's the land of Mu. So in Hawaii and Kauai, where I live, and also surrounding areas of Australia, there is this sacred land, this ancient, I would say ancient timeline where we lived in peace and harmony. And so as we can see right now, we're not there, but there is this big invitation right now in humanity to come to, I would say, an ancient futuristic forward timeline where we can weave through what the ancients knew and to what we actually already do know in the future into this timeline. So this is the work that I do. It's quite multidimensional, but it's from my bloodline. And I really do feel that when I came home to this island, Hawaii is a grandmother island. And of course, I learned these teachings from my grandmother. So there's been like a very big full circle for me personally, but I feel like for many of us, the rose consciousness, the rose lineage, the teachings of the rose, they're really, really, really coming home to a lot of us right now. A lot of us are like, yep, that's my lineage,
Yeah.
that's my lineage, that's where I'm from. And you don't have to have a story like I do, but maybe you do, and I think many of us at this time, we're just trying to understand, what we have been, to figure out how we got here now, to figure out where's the right way to go. And yeah, I'm super honored because I've been laughing a little bit because so many Aussie sisters finally have been coming like full circle into my world. So we've been having this conversation about doing this for a while, and I've just been noticing that like there's this big full circling happening for me. And I want to just speak to that briefly for a moment, just to kind of bring all of you into this. So for those of you who don't know, I'm going to share something, could be new, could be something you already know, but right now, where we are in the Venusian rose astrology, so Venus astrology, is a very powerful point that only happens every 19 months. So maybe you're like, sheesh, Shona, I've been going through so much. There's so much happening. Like, I feel like I'm doing all this ancestral clearing. I've got all these things coming up with money, with my roots, with my relationships, with whatever's happening. And yes, that's because we're in a Venus retrograde cycle, or how I like to call her is a Venus union phase. So really this happens every 19 months. and it's actually part of one of the 4 phases of Venus. And we get to recode right now. We're recoding our relationship to money, to sex, to every relationship we have, to beauty, to our ancestry, to learning and unlearning how to do things that maybe didn't work, or maybe things that are working. So it's a really powerful time for reflection. You know, I feel like any retrograde in astrology is also always a very powerful opportunity to review. But I like to call it a recoding, or a union phase, where you get to bring in everything that maybe even things you don't want to be unified with, right? Like what's happening in the world. Like none of us really want to really look at what's happening in the world. But the thing is, how we get into this medicine of this cycle, of this phase, is that we bring closer to us everything, right? All the things we even don't want to look at, and we allow them to come into union with us. And to look at this in a really practical way, this is where and when Venus is the closest to the Earth. So in the last 19-month cycle, this is where Venus will be closest to the Earth that she has been since 19 months ago. So since last year, the year before, 2021, like December, that was the last time we were in this phase. And I call it the union phase because I feel like it's where you really get to come into like that homecoming of like, okay, this is who I am, this is who I'm not, like I'm in love it all. It's a very deep integration process of coming into unification with yourself and God and all of yourselves. And maybe you don't say God, maybe you say spirit or goddess or whoever that is. You come into union with the unseen, the spirit, the matter, the form. They come into this Trinity-based consciousness. And to just kind of close that up, that piece there is that when you look into Venus astrology, or when you look into your life, or when you tune into that, it's a relationship. It's a Trinity-based consciousness, right? It's you, your mother, and your father. And so we know, right? We're doing ancestral healing. We know our mom, we know our dad. But if you were to look into a greater plan, our father, the Holy Father, the Son, yeah? Our Holy Mother, this earth is our Holy Mother. She's the blue pearl. She is our mother. She is the womb we came from, yeah? And then Venus, who I like to kind of always play with her as like that promiscuous self of Shona, or whoever we want to be. Venus is that daughter. She's the daughter, right? So however you want to look at it, whether you're into Venus astrology, whether you're into anything I'm speaking about, it's a beautiful opportunity for you to come home to yourself and to realize that at this time, the planets are getting ready to come into a grand trine, right? On the 13th of August, coming up, right? It's after Lion's Gate. Sunday, the 13th of August, there's going to be a grand inferior conjunction, which means that Venus will be in the middle, the Earth will be on one side, and the Sun will be on the other side. Venus will be in front of the Sun. You won't be able to see her, but she'll be in the light, and she'll be making love. She will be, you know, the in-between of the mother and the father. You will get to have this experience of coming into union with your lineage, with whatever that means for you, whether that's, you know, your teachings or what you're sharing, or maybe you want to have a daughter, whatever it is, you'll get to experience a unification process of this Trinity-based consciousness. So that's a little bit about what I do. We work with Venus astrology, but more than anything, I work with the body. So I work with ancestral healing, I work with fertility, we work with womb healing. But more than ever in the last 8 years, I've been really focusing on Venus astrology because it's been helping me understand what the, excuse my French, fuck is happening in the world. I'm like, okay, it's not going to make sense because it's just a cycle. It's just a rhythm. It's just part of the season. And yeah, it's scary. It's full on. It's really uncomfortable, but we have to go through this for humanity to wake up. We have to go through this to understand what it is that we need to shift and change, and how we want to come back into a unified field. So I wouldn't be who I am today if it wasn't for Venus astrology. And if that's something new for you, there's many ways to look it up. There's an amazing book I feel like there's amazing things to tune into about that, but I won't go too far down that rabbit hole because it's not my main body of work as well. But Venus Star Rising, Ariella, there's an amazing book as well. But I've been mainly focused on body temple art, so Tantra, that's I would say the tantric version of the rose lineage teachings is what I specialize in, but I am moving away from that work. This is my last training coming up, and I'm just going to be focusing on my own lineage healing and my children and finishing my book. So I feel like at this time, less is more.
Yeah.
Because there's so much going on. So I've been really like, all right, okay, we're going to be doing less now, because it feels like it's important with the work that we're doing, and anything that involves karma, relationships, all the things with Venus, sex, money, all the things, they're obviously heightened right now in this Venus retrograde union phase. But in general, I think this is something that's becoming more and more, I would say, illuminated for humanity, because how are we going to get to the root cause of what we're going through if we don't go all the way into the root of the body, which is going to be the sex center? So this is literally my life's work. I left home really young and went straight to India for these studies. So traditionally I'm trained in Tantra in India. And then a lot of it has been my own healing journey, like my own womb healing journey. You know, had an abortion when I was younger. I've been told I could never have children previously. So a lot of this was from my own lineage, ancestral healing. And I really do believe that's really how we know it's our calling, right? Because the teachings that we share are, you know, first and foremost, they're for us.
Yeah.
And they're a consistent reminder of like what I need to be doing. So when I say things out loud, you know, I'm also like a humble beginner and student, because this never ends. This path doesn't really end. It just keeps going, spiraling. We keep getting deeper and deeper in the next level. And, you know, obviously that's part of this journey, you know, is really accepting that this is the life's work. And I think it's just as important, the life's work, to what it is we're going to actually devote the time and space to playing in this playground of what we're doing too. So that's kind of been my main new kind of like big focus and redirection, is like more play and more time with my children, and like less really focusing on sharing this big body of work with the world, but just like really being a human and playing and being in this grand cosmic joke that we're a part of, because it really is quite comical when we really like zoom back. It's pretty fucking hilarious. That's why I was laughing when I got on here, because I was like, of course I'm finally speaking to you now, because Australia's coming back around and everything's it's like a big joke. So you know, we can't rush the process. And it's really like, you know, one thing I feel like, I mean, the first thing I feel like you start feeling with the rose teachings is that there is that spiral. You know, when you look into a rose, the level of like, I would say, magnetism and beauty and like perfection of the Fibonacci, how that spiral of the rose is just like a reflection of our lives, and like the imperfectly perfect magic that we really are here as being a human. So being holy and being human, which, you know, is obviously why Mary Magdalene's such a big piece at this time, because she was that. She was human and she was holy. She was a mother, she was a priestess, she was everything and she was nothing. So she's come back in a big way. And I'll just close with this piece here, that this Venus retrograde or union phase is so deeply coded because it began on Mary Magdalene's feast day. And previously, the year before, we know we had that massive Magdalene portal, right? The whole year, this 2022, we had that February 2022, like that big portal of Mary Magdalene. Literally, the last Venus retrograde, it finished when that Magdalene portal opened. So think about that. Our last Venus retrograde was at it was the last day, was that Magdalene portal last year, right? And then now this new Venus retrograde is like on Mary Magdalene's feast day. So, you know, she's encoded into all this DNA, this tapestry that we're weaving with the rose. And I'm sure we all know that's probably most of us how we're finding our way home, is through her and through her wisdom and through her lineage. So yeah, it's a really big blessing. I feel like many of us are finding each other because of her. And this was part of that divine plan. So yeah, I'm honored to be here. And like, it's so beautiful to see how much the rose consciousness is like, I feel like we're finally like finally the perfuming of the essence of the rose is coming through, so we can actually experience what it is that these teachings are. Not what we think they're supposed to be, but what they actually are. And that's what I really love about what you're doing, is you're sharing so many facets of this coming through, because it doesn't, you know, it's different for everybody. And my story is just my story, but I know that each of you have your own unique rhythm and story around how we connect to these teachings. But I imagine most of you have grandmothers or aunties or some part of your family that has either Marie in her name or Mary somewhere along the line, or there's roses somewhere painted within the tapestry of your ancestry, because it's just been happening, right?
Yeah.
I just like part of what it is, right? And it's where we're slowly unfolding into that mystery of her. So that's a little bit about what we do, but yeah, of course, that's only through words. There's only so much we can say in the English language. You know, it's really felt above all anything else.
Oh, definitely. And that's why I felt so called. I feel like, everything that you were kind of saying definitely resonates. And when we're in this change, when we're in this kind of breaking through with these codes, sometimes we can feel alone, but, are we the only ones going through? That's why I think it's, really important to, show up and be like, everyone's feeling this. And that's why I put that quote that you put about grief, because a lot of us, about holding space, a lot of us don't know what it means to hold space or to be there and to feel the grief. Like, I know for me, for my journey, yeah, very similar to you. Like, obviously we met when we were younger, and I tried to run away from my grief. I went overseas. You know what I mean? I went, and it followed me. And my biggest breakthroughs has been those moments where I truly felt, and it was like this, that came over me, and I felt. And similar to you with the work that I do, it can be quite, intense. And, same as me, like I took a break, and yeah, last year was about my ancestral healing and coming back to my joy, because you can get so deep in it. And over this past 3 years and everything that's happened, we've been forced to heal.
Yeah.
We've been forced to look at those parts. Yeah.
Giant ayahuasca ceremony for the world.
Yeah.
For real. Yeah, I always make jokes about how, like, when COVID happened, like COVID is a Latin word for crown, right? Yeah. And so on the Venusian nodal points, which I've been channeling and I'm writing a book about, the Venusian node, the crown chakra, is actually here on Grandmother Kavai. So I knew, oh wow, for the next few years of this corona crowning virus, I'm going to be helping channel what humanity needs to move through. And I think that many of us felt that. Many of us were like, Corona, like, we're recoding a royal bloodline, whether you are Black, white, Hispanic, whatever you are, that doesn't matter. It's like the Mirian timeline of our ancestry, where we were together and one and aligned and healing the planet and listening to what she is wanting from us, and coding the stars and like running our community based upon ancient technologies. Those times are not forgotten in our bones, and they do require a really deep spaciousness for listening. Like, and that's not easy, it's like, and I think that, like, it's beautiful, and sometimes I make jokes about, I saw this meme the other day. This is so funny. I saw this meme the other day, like a while ago, and it keeps coming back through, where it's like this woman like laying down on like a chair naked. And they were like, no wonder, like, the Renaissance period, like, happened after the plague. And, like, I was like, it's kind of what's happening right now, where it's like we had this coronavirus, like, kind of like a like modern version of the plague. And now all of us are like, okay, the real medicine is the pleasure, and they're doing nothing, because it's like, that's really what's happening. It's like the spaciousness. The not working for other people, the not listening to the societal, supposed to do this and that, like, it's huge. Even people that weren't awake before coronavirus, like, you're awake now. And if you have like a snippet of awakening, you're definitely like ready to like understand, and that's, I think, such a beauty, because literally, like, we had a crown man-made virus. I don't care what your perception is of this. Like, I'm going to share mine. I do believe it was a man-made virus. I don't believe in the injections. I know many of us, it happened because we were forced into it. I'm not going to speak too much on that, but I feel like, regardless of whether or not your take on this, no matter what happened to your health, no matter where you are, you're going to have a deeper understanding of why you're here. It doesn't matter what happened in the timeline, the process, it really what took you there. But like, this journey that we've been on in humanity, like, it was necessary. It was necessary for all of us to be like, okay, this isn't working, like, this isn't going to be a timeline that's going to make sense for us. And I really do feel that the grief and the mess and like all those heavier things is where the magic is. And my last post was like, you know, the magic and the mess. And I'm not really on social media anymore because I've been in my own deep, powerful mess where it doesn't have space to be on social media a lot. So, you know, I think it's important to honor what we're actually hearing is how to take care of yourself, because that's not going to look like me or Jess at all. You know, Jess had her own experience and we all are. So yeah, it's like really big times to like tune into this, but I'm excited we're talking today because I would love to share some things, if you're open to it, about some of the best things to tune into on Venus retrogrades. I just think that I mean, I'm not one to love rules. I do not love rules. Like I am like 34 years old and like still navigating a lot of authority journeys because of how I was brought up, but also because of the systems that I feel are in charge right now are not really something that I believe in. Yeah. But when it comes to astrology and it comes to Venus and it comes to healing, you can get these really beautiful invitations for these things to work for you, right? It's like, you know, Mercury retrogrades, all the retrogrades, people are like, oh my gosh, like they're so like full on and intense and like people are afraid of these things.
Yeah.
And like, it's the same thing as like real Tantra. People are like, everything's about the pleasure and orgasms. Is like, no, real Tantra is also about all of the other shit too. Like these are the real things. So I'm all about that. So essentially, I feel like when you're in Venus retrograde or union phase, it's an invitation to clean up your messes in a way that you're really supported. You're really supported to clean up your messes around your relationship to money, your relationship to love, your relationship to humans, to beauty, to love, to sex, to art. And you also get to like recode that relationship for the next 19 months and close out anything that you opened up in the last 19 months that didn't really feel that good. Because you don't want to bring it into the new phase, right? We don't want to do that. Many ex-lovers are coming through, texting up, blowing up your phone. Like there's going to be lots of distractions in this period. Stay focused with the overall vision of your life moving forward. Do not like get distracted by like the things that are like from the past, right? But also honor the past, like antiques, ancient timelines, Lemuria, temple arts, like things that are really ancient is going to be really powerful for your healing right now. Like doing ancestral work, talking to your ancestors, your healed and whole ancestors, looking at your relationship to money, to your root, to your yoni, to your sex center, to your pleasure. These are all like really basic things to do, and that doesn't look the same for every individual. But a few things I've noticed that support with not making more messes is not starting a relationship in this time that's brand new, that's sexual. If you meet somebody, that's powerful, but like just taking your time and like knowing that we're in this process of healing our relationship to union, to how we commune and be connected as humans. And to really, you know, be really careful. And I wouldn't say careful as afraid, but careful as curious to how you are relating to money, how you are relating to things that feel good for you. Like it's like part of us are like afraid to make space for pleasure, right? Because we're just been through what we've been through. So I understand. But looking at that and being like carefully curious about how you are speaking and communing with things in your life, you know, like great time for sex magic if you already have a partner or you have a self practice. Great time for catching up on things that you've already invested in that were a previous investment. Not a good time to invest in things that are brand new, right? If it's an ancient technology, like what I teach, great time to invest in that. If it's something that like you feel like it's really important, you've been thinking about for a long time, like you've been tuning into something for a long time, it's actually a really good time to make an investment because you've been bringing it into an ancient futuristic forward timeline, like right now. But being really intentional, like this is why I'm doing this, like being super intentional, even saying it out loud before you press click and you invest in something, like really being more than ever intentional with what you're doing. Because as you know, your money is your energy. As you know, your sexual energy is like the root of your whole creation, right? The mother, the father, and you're the holy child. And whether or not you have that story in your system, you could get that story in your system super easy at this time, like by recoding your mind, mantras, like working with your the way that you speak to yourself in the mirror, the way that you talk to your children, the way that you speak to people that you care about, really practicing speaking things out loud that you want to create into your life, right? We know this. Our words are spelling. We know this. But this time can help you recode that in a way that can set up the rest of your 19 months. I've just noticed also too, like, you know, because I work with Venus already, it's like my life's work. I've noticed how effortless it is to do my work right now. Like I'm on fire. Like things I've been working on for years are just like, whoop. So, you know, things like that you're already working with, that you're building up. Not a good time to just start brand new things though. It's a time to kind of really slowly think about things, and like, yeah, maybe ex-lovers did come in. I can see that coming in. I think for everybody, we're all feeling the ex-lovers. And if that comes in, like, cool, like review it. It could be a thing, could not be a thing, but just be carefully curious about things, because you're literally recoding your relationship to these parts of your timelines, right? It's like, it's huge. And also it's fun, and it's like playful, and it's like beautiful, and it's like edgy. So, you know, it's a good time to really like have those beautiful conversations. And I feel like working in groups of people, most of us do every day, right? Our families, or where we work, maybe we're entrepreneurs and we run groups of our containers. This is a good time to level up how you do that, right? So how you can be in better alignment or of integrity with how you show up for yourself, for your team, for your community. I'll just close with, like, it's just such a powerful time, like such a powerful time to, obviously, if you're new, to invite these energies in, to learn how to even just call upon your healed and whole ancestors and ask them to support you, to guide you. When you are in this union phase leading up to the inferior conjunction on the 13th, it's just like a beautiful way to like really align with the highest version of yourself, right? Because we're here in our bodies and we know this, right? But there's a higher version of us, and then there's a previous version of us. There's an anchored ancestral, like, roots version of us. You are that tuning fork of heaven on earth. You get to commune with your new reality. An ancient futuristic forward timeline can be seated in so deeply in these times that will literally shift the next phase of this cycle. So just a few little practical pieces, because I know right now practicality feels pretty important with how much is going on. I feel like more than ever my team's like, be practical, be direct. I'm like, okay, I'm gonna be direct and practical.
No, it's good. Yeah, because I've seen so many people as we've been chatting going like, I'm definitely feeling this. Yes, I resonate. You know, it's definitely a collective, you know, energy that's happening. So everyone's like, yes. And yeah, taking those tips and taking those tools. And, you know, I remember I tuned in, you had something on earlier, I think around Valentine's Day. You had, was it, you had a...
the land of rose milk and honey, which is like
land of rose milk and honey
for right now. This is what I'm talking about today, the land of rose milk and honey.
Oh, it was beautiful. And I remember you did this, was it, you did a beautiful song, like it was,
the Hawaiian song.
Yeah, it was. I was like crying. I was watching it. I was like, oh, it was stunning.
Yeah, I know. I feel like I'm all about like taking hour-long ceremonies. I'm all about the slow, like the super drawn out feminine journey. And I'm also a mother, so I also know like I got to get shit done, and there's timelines and things happening. And I do feel like there's some really deep invitations, like on the 13th, if you have that opportunity, the 13th of this month, to do a long drawn out, like, I'm going to love myself up for hours long on the 13th. That's a good time, because at that moment, literally Venus, the sun, and the earth are coming into this beautiful conjunction, which will feel so good. Like you want to open your body to receive that. And if you have a partner, you're like sex magic, intentional setting intentions, and like going into making love, seeding in, like that time is like, the way that I see it is like Venus is like having her mother and father like make love and create a new version of her, because we're going into a new star point. So Venus star rising, that book I spoke about, Ariel, she speaks about that every 19 months is a Venus star point.
Mm.
And essentially that's like a way to speak about the 19 months. There is 5 19-month cycles in an 8-year Venus cycle. So Venus is an 8-year cycle, and then she has 5 of those 19 months. So within each of these 19 months, each of these star points, there's going to always be a retrograde, union phase is what I called it, a morning star, an underworld, and then an evening star. We're just completing the evening star phase. And it's like a self-resurrection phase. That's what the evening star is. The evening star is like, I am coming out of the underworld, resurrecting myself from who I wasn't before, and I'm returning home to my holy glory. That's what we just did, right? That phase just completed. Now we're in Venus retrograde or union phase. And that is really like, okay, I made it. I made it. I made it through. What do I want to do now? And how do I want to be? Like, do I want to chill the fuck out? Then chill out. Do I want to make more love? Make more love. I want to make more money? Make more money. Like, get that in your system that you are worthy of that. Because that's the first step, right? If you don't feel worthy of taking up space, you won't create anything you won't create anything. And that's what, you know, I think many of us are learning, that the more we can take up space, it isn't selfish. In fact, it's actually selfless. The more that you take up space in your vicinity of your sovereignty as a human, as a being, as a mother, as a maiden, as a mystic, whoever you are, as a man, whatever you're holding space for. I realize this is on social media, so there could be men here. I usually teach to women. But wherever you are, whoever you relate to, whatever you're unfolding into, you get this moment to like procreate that. And on the 13th, like, it's like, think about it. Your mother and your father are going to make love to create a new version of that child. And you're that child. You are that child. So what do you want to make? What do you want to create? What is your secret dreams that you're like, you know, you're womb-manifesting, or manifesting in your womb, or your hara. Your hara is a male version of a womb for a man. And so what is it that you are wanting to do? And it can be, you know, of course, everything and nothing. You know, it can be all about you or about your family, or it can be a huge prayer for the earth, right? There's no prayer or dream too little or too large. When we pass this over to our father and our mother, our holy father, our holy mother, there's nothing that's too small or too big. You know, we get out of the way and we pass that over. So if you can, 13th, Sunday the 13th, just after Lionsgate, make that moment for yourself to really be like, okay, I'm going into like a couple of hours of myself, and like into your body, and like touching your body. And if you have a self-care practice, like doing that and elaborating on it and working with your body or with your partner, you know. And this is like a powerful time to not just realign and remember and recode, but also like literally like impregnate your life with what it is that you are choosing to put your energy into. That's why the ex-lovers are coming through, because they're like, oh, she's so juicy, it's so lit, it's so fertile right now. Everyone's like, oh, I want a piece of that. And then you got to be like, no, sorry, it's just me and God, or like me and my beloved, or like me and this prayer, or whoever you pray to, whoever you are communing with. It's an intimate moment that's infinitely intimate. As my best friend in Australia would say, she's like, it's infinitely intimate. You know, there's this infinity that is within intimacy that many of us kind of just like skip over. And that's what Venus's teachings are about. That's what the rose is about. It's about slowing that down and also spiraling that inwards instead of that spiraling outwards. It's about, okay, we're going down. Sometimes it's uncomfortable because you're like, oh, I'm going down, or I'm going into this place that usually I don't like to go into, but the gifts are unfathomable when we go there. Like, and I'm sure you can, you know, Jess, you can speak about that, like the gifts of moving through your grief that you've received. Like, I just, you know, I'd love to hear about that, because we know, like, after that, we're like,
we get to the place, we get to that place, and like, you know, we get to that place where we're feeling it all, and you know, and someone put there, it's juicy. It is like, you know, because I remember I was having a chat with a friend, and it was like, you know, what do you see as, you know, success, or, you know, and I think for me now, or like time, is having time to be able to have that sacred juicy time, because like what you said, we're either slowing down, or we're, you know, we're in a world, especially, you know, here I'm in a big city, and it's like, you know, a lot of us don't have the time to give back to ourselves and to love ourselves. And I think it's beautiful the work you've done, and like letting us know as well, you know, with these dates coming up, is hey, it's okay to, you know, give, you know, Sunday, the August the 13th, to yourself, and give yourself that pleasure, because sometimes we forget to give ourselves that time to even feel the grief, or either feel the joy or pleasure, or yeah, all the things.
All the things. Yeah, and you know, like I feel like grief is a doorway. You know, it's like I had a really powerful session the other day with this practitioner I've been working with for, gosh, since I got divorced. And for those of you who don't know, many of you who are following me, you know my story. I got divorced, and the father of my children's kind of become like a born again Christian, so to speak. And I believe in God, but I don't believe in God like that, where there's a punishment and where there is like, you know, judgment day and things like that. I don't believe in that God. And it's been interesting, you know, because I noticed like recently there's been this self-worth piece for me, where I've been like not thinking that I'm worthy of God's love just for being who I am. And you know, I got baptized when I was 19, so I literally found the rose lineage and then got baptized. You know, I was never baptized, so God's always been a big part of my life. And it wasn't really until I really realized that I didn't have a strong relationship with God as my father. And I didn't feel like I deserved to be provided for. I wasn't making the money that I wanted to make. I wasn't feeling happy in my relationships. And then I really realized, wow, God is my father. And the sun is my father. And that like the earth is my mother. And like the goddess is my mother. I get to actually be loved as a holy child, even if that didn't happen in my journey. And it did, you know, to a degree, until my parents broke up. And nothing's perfect. Everything's imperfectly perfect. But we get to recode that story by showing up and being like, God is my father. I deserve to be provided for. I deserve more space. I deserve more of X, Y, and Z. But if you don't really believe that, and you don't create the space in your system to believe that, you won't create that. You can say anything you want. You can talk to us all day long, but you won't actually create that. And I feel like it wasn't until I really like, I've been doing a lot of healing these last couple of years since being divorced, but I had this pinnacle of this process like last week on Friday, last Venus Day, where this space holder, and he's a pastor, actually. He's a previous pastor. He doesn't do a sermon anymore. And he believes in God, but not in the ways that he used to, in the way that I've kind of had people around me believing in God. And he said to me, he was like, why don't you believe that you're worthy of God's love just exactly the way that you are? And I was like, I don't think I deserve it. And he was like, why? And then I just like the level of grief that my body was holding onto. And it's these moments that you really give yourself to those emotions. They don't make sense, right? Half the shit doesn't make sense. Because I've done so much healing and I'm like, it's still here. And, you know, I gave myself so far over to that process, and the grief came, and then the anger came, and then the laughter came, and then the orgasm came. Like, you know, we really are like this holy, we are this holy vessel of like, of human flesh, mystery and magic, you know, human and holy, that like our emotions, when we really give ourselves over to them, are doorways into infinite possibilities of healing. And, you know, most of us, our mothers never did that for themselves. Our fathers never did that for themselves, you know, and like our parents did the best they could with what they were given. And that's our blessing of being here and being like, all right, even though it's going to make my family uncomfortable, or I'm going to piss somebody off, I'm going to put myself first, and I'm going to set this boundary with y'all. Like, you know, this is the work. Like, this is the work, you know? And like, I'm taking 2 hours on church day, and I'm going to give myself some self-pleasure. You know, like these things are like important, you know? And of course, like, you know, I believe in God in my own way, and I think we all have that right to have that relationship. But one thing I've learned more than ever is that we are worthy exactly the way that we are. There's nothing that we have to do besides keep showing up more and more authentically. The more that you can give yourself to a process, and I believe there is 5 main emotions of the womb, and in the teachings that we study, we speak about anger and fear being the first few, which is what humanity's been going through. Fear and anger is kind of like the precipice of what we've been given as a societal realms. Like, how much fear can we inject into the society? How much can we piss people off? And these 2 ones is usually where we get stuck, right? And then the third one's going to be that grief, because that it either they can kind of merge in between the three together. But those three emotions, like fear, grief, anger, or whatever way that you experience them, that is the doorway into your deepest divine aligned destiny. Because if you can't be with those emotions, you most likely can't be with the other side of things, the pleasure, the joy, the ecstasy, the longing. And many of us are so concerned why we're not happy, right? But that's not the goal, is to be happy. The goal is to be feeling and to be in the present and to be like balanced. You know, I don't want to always be happy. It would be boring. So
and this is what you're saying, like, you know, we're all going through our own beautiful mess and trying to break through this perception of, you know, what is perfect is we're imperfect, and we're trying to go to these ideals. I definitely resonate with you. When I was going through my divorce a few years ago, I remember I was working in office and it was all guys, like, and I used to run to the toilet and cry, you know, like, because, you know, when you're going through something like that. And then I was like, you know what, I'm just going to sit at my desk and cry. Like, you know what I mean? I'm a woman. I'm going to be my femininity. I'm feeling it. And you know what? I was really surprised. I actually felt, because if I was probably, you know, in an office with women, they would come up and be like, you're okay. I actually felt what it was like for the masculine to hold space for me. And they knew I was crying at my desk, but like, I felt supported, even though, you know what I mean? Like,
yes,
like they were like, you know, she's just feeling it, like going through. And that was like, that was a really defining moment for me. And, you know, I've had a few of those within my life where it's okay to cry in public. It's okay to feel. It's okay to, you know, the more and more you try to, you know, hold back that emotion, the more and more it's going to catch up on you and be like, hey, I'm not okay. Sometimes I'm a beautiful mess. Sometimes I'm going through all the things, but, you know, this is my journey, and this is, you know, those moments that define you. Yeah.
Yeah, no, I love that. I love that. I think that we need to give men more opportunities to be space holders.
Yeah.
I think men are longing to be given more opportunities to be the divine masculine, not just to be the masculine, but to be the divine masculine.
Yeah.
You know, and one thing I'm learning a lot lately is like how many times I just already perceive my baby daddy, my ex-husband, to be a certain way, and I don't give him an opportunity to be a different way. He usually doesn't be a different way, but that's fine. I just want to give him the opportunity to be a different way. And I think that's really important, you know, and like, yeah, there's so much stigma around like crying and being vulnerable, and like, like anyone who knows me personally, like they'll know that I'm just like, I'll just be however I'm going to be. I'm like Cancer sun, Venus Cancer, like I'm Cancer a lot.
Yeah.
I'm a lot of like, I'm sensitive and emotional. And I was having a call with my our team for an upcoming training, and we were making a joke about something we were healing, but I was like, no, that's a real thing. My tagline when I was growing up was like, you're being mean to me. Like that was like my tagline. That my mom said that I would always say to my cousin and my sister. And I think it's real, you know. It's like when we do ancestral healing and when we go through divorces or rejections or whatever we're going through, like there is not enough spaces in like society to just like lay it on the table.
Yeah.
And this is why I'm so focused on doing that for women, is because I feel like I missed that. Like to do the healing that I'm doing on myself right now, I kind of missed the container. And I feel like as a leader in this container as well that I'm holding, I like to show women that like, hey, I'm not perfect. Like I'm actually going to cry with you. Hey, I'm going to share something that's going to be really emotional for me too. I don't want to just teach to you through perfection or through like, I got it all figured out. That's not, I think, practical. And again, Mary Magdalene, she did not do that. She was like, I'm going to be in the streets. I'm going to help the dying people. I'm going to help the children come through. I'm not going to be like this perfect fucking person that is like unapproachable, unobtainable. I'm going to be human, and I'm going to be holy. And I'm going to show you that like, I'm all of it. I'm everything and I'm nothing. And with what's happened to society, and also what's happened to the idea of, I think even the goddess movement, I'm going to speak to this just slightly because I feel like I need to. The whole goddess movement, I love it. It's awesome. I think it's also really debilitating. I think it's actually fucked up a lot of people. I myself included had to go through some big healing around like this goddess movement, because we can't put this in its place without also really deeply honoring the masculine. And for us to be like, oh, the patriarchy. No. The false patriarchy is what did this. But there's a true underlying presence of the true like divine masculine patriarchal, like structural, authoritarian aspect that is sacred and holy. Like God the Father, like God our Father, who, sorry, did not write that biblical text that most of us read from on Sundays. The real text of the Gospels, like the lost Gospels, and the true essence of the Essenes, and like the true essence of Yeshua, of Isa, that essence of the masculine was always protecting the feminine, was always protecting like the spirit of the feminine. And this goddess movement has like taken a lot of things and twisted it around and kind of turned us against each other again. So it's like, this is a propaganda that was put in place thousands of years ago for us to switch around. But really, to heal the holy family, the holy lineage, which is a big part of my work that I'm even doing in my own life right now, it is to really respect the place of the masculine. No, not to always be walked all over the top of them and also be like ordered around, told what to do, but to respect the authority of what that structure brings to us as feminine.
Yeah.
And I wouldn't have it any other way, right? Like now I've actually been able to really receive that provision. I've been like, oh, sheesh, like no wonder I'm so fucking tired, because I wasn't able to actually like receive this provision of my holy father that wants to take care of me. I was too busy just like running around with like a chicken with a head cut off, like kind of vibes, you know, like I was just running around. And that's why I feel like when men can hold space and hold a container for women, we get to be like, right, I'm gonna come undone, and like there's a structure there, and I can just fucking cry in the office, and like men are around me, like just like vibes. I got you, Jess. We got you. Cry over that man, that divorce. He wasn't worth it. You were wet. Like, you can just like hold that.
But I feel like, it was a big eye-opening for me as well, because I felt like when I was going through that, like same, I was in that goddess movement. I've got this, I'm an independent woman, like this and this. And it's been those moments that have taught me, you need the masculine. Masculine does want to support you. When you let down those walls and you have your vulnerability and you step into that feminine, it's like, I got you. You're safe. You know?
Yeah, and of course, not always, you know, it's each to their own. Too. Like there's times where I can't lay down that vulnerability. Sweet sister, beautiful sister on here from the Big Island, she knows what I'm talking about. I've been meaning to speak to you, sister. Let's chat. I want to talk to you, girl. She's been doing some really powerful hands-on work. But yeah, I also feel like I've had to really look at myself recently and be like, wow, how have I been degrading the masculine my whole life? Like, whoa, you know, I have a son, he's almost 7, and I've had to really be like, whoa, like I have been emasculating the men for most of my life, and I didn't even know how or why until I was able to lay down that sword of that warrior piece of like the patriarchy did something wrong to me, and I got that correct in my mind, like the false patriarchy, because the actual patriarchy, I want that in my life. I want to be held, I want a structure, I want to be provided for, I bow down to what the Essenes and the Cathars did for us so that we could actually be here receiving Mary Magdalene in all her glory, and her being brought to the front line and remembered as a saint, remembered as a woman. Hey, Shyla, remembered as a woman that was carrying forth these teachings, you know? And of course, like even think about Mother Mary. Our next training that we have coming up, it's my last training. It actually starts on Mother Mary's Assumption Day. And that day is also my 9-year anniversary of being on Grandmother Kavai. And like, I just feel like Mother Mary is like, of course, she's not the saint. She's not just a saint. I really believe she's an incarnation of Isis, and she's an incarnation of these holy temple arts that we're speaking about. But of course, at times we've had to allow the sacred purity and the unconditional love and the compassion of the feminine be the only thing that's at the forefront of humanity, because we've been through so much. The men have been through so much. We have been through so much. And for us to learn how to receive each other again, you know? Yeah, I mean, I'll just be forever thankful for like what I've been able just to receive from this island, because, you know, like the broken energies of the feminine lines and the level of like what we've done to each other, and the level of what we've been taught to do to our sons and to our children, like it's big, like it's really big. And it's been a lack of spaciousness for what humanity's processing as a whole. The more that I come home to Kauai, the more that like I listen to her, the more I listen to the earth, the more I really realize like, wow, like this is nothing even to do with like my story. This is so much bigger than this, but it is a responsibility for me to be with my story and not to project it out and to really be with my story, because it's not anyone else's but mine. It's my story. And to keep trying to project that onto like my ex-husband or to my mother or to a teacher, like that's not going to work. That's not giving me what it is that I actually need to help heal my own story. And when this is in retrograde, girl, sisters, brothers, like we get like a big opportunity to be like, okay, rewriting my story. My story is being rewritten. So writing right now, writing music, writing like, you know, books, writing timelines, setting up, you know, writing to plan for what you want to create, not to create anything new, but to, you know, work with, you know, planning and like kind of like dream seeding what it is that you want to bring into your life. This is such a good time for that, because you literally will feel that kind of realigning of that relationship to yourself. And of course that might look just like crying for a few days and like not talking to anybody. Like that could be your journey. I think everyone has their own different journey. Mine's looking pretty interesting right now. I couldn't even believe like what I've been going through with my children. I'm like, all right, my children are recoding some karmic pieces right now with me and their father, and I'm going to be here for this. So, you know, like we never know how it's going to unfold. That's the great mystery of these teachings of the rose. But we do get to work with the invitations of her seasons and her cycles, which is really what I hope, you know, we're able to support you with today, is just like kind of tuning into that season and that cycle. But yeah, I even like, I just have been reviewing even how I like relate to like everything to do with like every part of how I show up when in my relationship to money. And that also connects to the masculine. That also connects to provision, right? It's like a domino effect. And so what I've been doing is kind of like I've been choosing topics, whether it's money or sex or love or beauty. And I've kind of been choosing one and really being with one of them and seeing how it wants to unfold and how it wants to shift and how it wants to be rewritten in my journey. That's what I've been kind of doing. And of course, it's not always up to me. That gets chosen for me as well. I feel like my children have been choosing things, and we don't choose all the time. You know, it shifts and oscillates and changes, but being in a steady practice in these, you know, the retrograde started on the 22nd of July. It ends on the 3rd of September. But in, you know, we have that grand inferior conjunction on the 13th. So some people say that, you know, Venus retrograde is still happening, but we're in a new phase. We will move and begin to start the morning star phase after the 13th. But what I've noticed is the first part of Venus retrograde is like all about what you really are, like kind of clearing out. You're like making space. You're like, oh, okay, I love this, but I'm ready to let it go. And like, I'm accepting it, but I'm like moving it through and integrating it through my body. That's like the first half of Venus retrograde. And then after the 13th, after the inferior conjunction, it's kind of more like, all right, there's lots of space here. My mother and my father just made love. They just created me. I'm fresh. I'm here. Let's do this. It's kind of like more of a very deep kind of dream or like lucid phase. This is just what I've noticed from like tracking the last 8 years. So it's been beautiful because I really feel like there's deep medicine, and even just inviting in like even a fraction of what we said today, that can be supportive for you to receive more, and also to be able to give more to people in your life that you really love. Because of course, as we can receive more and fill up our cup, our chalice, we can actually give more people that we love.
Oh, so yeah, so beautiful. And so yeah, I'll note down those kind of you know, so what would you say out of like, so the key dates beginning with, so like we've obviously got the 13th, and then from there it's gonna, like, obviously going into the morning star is gonna be that kind of renewal.
I would say like even like going back to Mary Magdalene feast day, maybe you actually don't know what, maybe this is new to you and you didn't know Venus is going retrograde. Maybe you totally knew and you were like, yes, I know this girl. But either way, whatever started coding in on the 22nd of July, Mary Magdalene feast day, is going to be like, it's actually a 44-day period, of course, this year. And last time it was too, 44 days. So this little pocket is like a rewriting right now. So whatever kind of started happening at that time could be really cool for you to tune into if you weren't present to it. And then just realizing, wow, I'm like kind of in this phase right now of like, okay, X's are coming in, like I'm being introduced to lots of different things that are like either not working or like I'm getting to choose whether I want to redo that again. One thing I've noticed in Venus retrogrades or Venus union phase is that if you start something new, it usually has to be cleaned up later on. So not really starting new things, like being with like, oh, what's here? What is this here? Oh, it's all here. Like maybe you were like totally like ignoring something that you know is really important. This is the time for it. Like depending on where your placement is of Venus and also Leo, this is Venus, we're retrograde in the sign of Leo. So depending on your chart, whether you know what planets you have, like it depends on really where you're at. So one thing I would look at is what house is this falling in? What planets do you have in this process of this retrograde, right? And then also that can give you different themes to look at. But as a whole, 22nd of July, Mary Magdalene Feast Day, we begin. First couple of weeks, letting go, kind of like lots of X's, lots of opportunities, staying focused, inviting it in, becoming unified with it, and then allowing things to like drop away. Don't push it away because it'll come back, right? If we don't integrate things into our field, if we don't consciously integrate like stuff that even we don't like into our field that's happening, it's just going to keep repeating itself. It literally will just come back again, like a different person, different process, a different timeline, like to really finish out that process, like invite it in, ask for what it is that's trying to teach you, ask for the blessings, ask to be shown why this keeps repeating itself. And then on the 13th of August, Sunday, the 13th of August, grand inferior conjunction, Holy Father, Holy Mother, dream seed, beautiful procreation. Like I call this the union phase because I also like mirror it to the feminine phases. So for me, this is like ovulation time, right? So literally like, what is my mother and my father creating with me as that creation, as that gift, heaven on earth, right? And then after the 13th, you know, you're kind of going into more of like, I feel like the energy will be a bit lighter and it'll be more like, wow, there's all this space that I created. Like, what am I going to put in here? And then also still being very like focused of like, who do I want in my field? Like, what do I want to bring into this field? Like being really carefully curious about what it is that you're bringing in, and know too that like things are going to be illuminated. Things are going to, you know, keep moving through. And then the 3rd of September is when Venus goes direct. And you know, like I said, some people in astrology say that the morning star phase doesn't start till the 3rd of September. I personally believe that the morning star phase does begin after the conjunction on the 13th. But it's like it's kind of like just like a little bit of taste of her, because we're still going to be retrograde in the energies of Leo. This is the longest that we are going to have Venus in Leo for like 50 something years. So, you know, I like it. And this is also going to be a star point. So it's the 3rd star point of the 8-year cycle of Venus. And it's the 3rd star point, and it's going to be in Leo. So the next 19 months, the overlining presence is going to be a Leo star point, which if that means nothing to you, it's okay. That's kind of more advanced. It just means that Leo is going to have a big, beautiful, magical, amazing kind of coding of your next 19 months. And what planets do you have in Leo? What planets are in Leo? I have my Mars in Leo. So I'm like, all right, we're doing this. I got my masculine vibes, and it's just been very, you know, illuminating to look at that, because it depends on your chart, but it can be really supportive even if you just look at it from like a grand view as well, what we're speaking about as well. But if you are more into astrology, doing astrological readings right now is a good time as well. We have a beautiful sister who's part of our team. She does practical astrology. She's amazing. I can like tag her here. She's been helping me through so many things, because she literally like applies things practically to your own chart. So I've been very practical. She's extra practical to what's happening in your chart. So I can tag her. Nike, she's an amazing woman. She's been studying with us here at the ministry for like 5 years. And she's been doing Daughters of the Rose, our online training for like the last 3 rounds. So she's really trained in what we're doing here. And she has really good, amazing, practical ways of applying astrology. So it's not just like all like really heady. But I like to be very practical as well when it comes to anything to do with astrology too, because that's how it's changed my life. In fact, the teachings that we share, the Venusian Rose Temple Arts, what we do here, really wouldn't be where they are today if it wasn't for me applying, you know, the Venusian astrology to it. So I
Wow.
am really thankful for that, because it has been supportive to have like another modality to kind of draw from. And the way that I see it is like the Venus astrology is like the heavenly realms, the Venusian Rose Temple arts,
Yeah.
which I'm practicing and sharing, is like the earthly realms, and then we become that conduit, the tuning fork to heaven on earth by receiving both those codexes through our body.
Oh, beautiful. Well, yeah, like so to find out a little bit more about, like, you've got upcoming training coming in as well during that period, they can follow you and you'll share a little bit more, and you can, yeah, tag a little bit more about with astrology as well. But I'm so grateful to have had you on and to share, because, yeah, same, like I had kind of, I think a lot of the things similar to you that I've been able to like birth or create has been with these timings and these, and these certain kind of, things within my, my star signs and my astrology. And, it's, I felt like called to come again, and we've finally been able to meet and chat. And I've so long wanted to go to one of your trainings and retreats, and just all the time it's always not aligning. And this is beautiful that we've been able to chat. We've been able to, like share this, and especially like, here in Australia, like even you, I found like, traveling the world, I got this calling to come back to the land and be with the land here, and yeah, to create that healing, for myself as well, here. And yeah, so yeah, so grateful. And I'll share this. And yeah, is there anything else that you want to leave us with?
No, I'm just so super grateful, like I
Mm.
shared earlier, is that like I literally, this is the last training I'm doing for level 1 in grandmother Kauai, and we have a videographer who's coming over. She's taking the training. She's flying over from Australia. Like, it's very Aussie coded, this training, which feels
Yeah.
like really healing for me, because
Yeah.
I haven't been able to go home for like 10 years.
Mm.
So yeah, I'm super grateful to be on here, and like just always so thankful for every sister who's doing this work, especially in Australia, because I know that it's like really, really needed right now, this kind of work to be grounded into that earth field, that earth grid. So thank you for doing the work that you do, and for sharing this work, and for having me on here. It's like such an honor to be here. And yeah, super excited to like merge our networks. And yeah, I totally, anyone who's coming on from my side, like please follow the sister. She's an amazing, amazing woman. And we've been weaving, yeah, physically, years ago we met, but we've been weaving on the online worlds for many, many years, like trying to find ways to anchor in deeper together. So thank you for this prayer to be answered today by sharing us in this time and space together.
Yeah, and yeah, all my sisters, and even a lot of guys tuned in as well, the
I saw
masculine.
that.
Thank you for joining and listening. Yeah, it's been beautiful. I think it's been, a lot like hearing the message, and being here. So and following your work. Like, I've had a few guys that have been interested and being, like, I think that they want to understand, and understand what yeah.
Yeah, I've been feeling really called to go into men's work, not to do work on men, but to teach men how to do this work on their beloveds.
Yeah.
So part of what I think I'm doing right now is stepping back for a pause. But a lot of God's been showing me that like you should be teaching this to couples, so that men learn how to do the sessions on their girlfriends or their beloveds or their wives, to prepare for babies or to help with healing from having babies. So I've been getting that question a lot, and a lot of couples have been coming to me as well. So it kind of feels like it's in the works, and like the 5-year plan potentially.
Yeah.
Not for now. For now.
Yeah. Yeah. For now. Yeah.
Yeah. But thank you, sister. Thank you.
Love.
Blessings to everyone.
Thanks.